All right, gather around, everyone. It was 4 years ago when I let my jailbird cousin Clarence take hold of this channel and review Van Helsing in his own words, in his own way.
Children, I don't know how that happens. I don't know how you give birth to people who are dead already. Well, it almost works when Dracula uses the energy from the newest Wolfman, I guess it's Anna's brother Falcon, but it failed. Also, Dracula and Wolverine meet for the first time, I guess, for Wolverine, but multiple times, I guess, according to Vamp Boy. I don't know why I'm laughing, but anyways, Van Helsing suffers from amnesia, I guess, in this movie. I guess memory loss, whatever that is.
Yeah, I wasn't too fond of that review. Sorry, Clarence. At least you tried.
Hasta la vista, baby.
But for real, it seems like it was just yesterday when this film was released. It was actually released on May 7, 2004. And I have to say, man, time has flew. But I did not see this film at the movie house, but I was very curious about it. Around this time, 2004, 2003, 5, my fandom in the Universal Monsters was just beginning, after the releases of The Mummy Returns 3 years prior. 2003 and 2004 was weird years in cinema. In 2003, we had the slasher horror crossover, Freddy vs. Jason. And then the next year, we had Alien vs. Predator. And to add that failed superhero steampunk film, The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, Sean Connery's last film, a film containing gothic horror characters playing Avengers and Justice League. Weird, but creative times in the early 21st century, even though that was based on a comic book. So I waited until the fall of 04 to finally feast my eyes on this film. Bought it on DVD. And for some reason, the woman who rung it up at the cash register at Walmart, yeah, I remember it was Walmart, looked at me weirdly because black people weren't allowed to see films like this. It's a rule in Milwaukee. If you watch, well, at least back then, you watch weird stuff like anime and cartoons and stuff at a past age, you shouldn't be watching that. You was considered lame. Now everybody wants to watch it. It's funny how that has gone so far. Now everybody is an anime lover in the black community. Nothing wrong with it, but now everybody wants to be. But anyways, moving on. Now that I think about it, I had the video game to this film. Never could beat that damn game. And I still have the game and the DVD. Never got the Blu-ray because popping this inside the Xbox One. Yes, I still have an Xbox One because I used to be a gamer, but not in love with video game anymore. But anyways, we ain't gonna talk about that. The film upgrades in Blu-ray quality once you put it in the Xbox One. But to the critics, this film was utter shite, earning a big fat 24% on Rotten Tomatoes, calling this film the worst summer blockbuster since Battlefield Earth. Now, I think that's going a little bit too far. But the late great movie critic Roger Ebert gave this film 3 out of 4 stars, calling it an overkill, but the director, Stephen Sommers, succeeded in assimilating all his monsters and plots together. Van Helsing is silly and spectacular fun. He is correct on the analyst. I agree with Roger Ebert on this one. Van Helsing is a brilliant slop of a film, and the same nature of Sommers' previous films in The Mummy and The Mummy Returns. Now, I don't think he did Scorpion King. I think he did. I don't know. The casting of Hugh Jackman as Van Helsing was perfect, capitalizing on his fame as the beloved Wolverine, who's still playing to this day. It's crazy, ain't it? Never thought at the time. Well, anyways, that's a different video. And who does not like seeing Kate back in style? Young Kate Beckinsale, who was playing Selene in Underworld at the time. Not only did it entertain, but also pay homage to some of the classic Universal monsters, particularly Dracula, Frankenstein, and the Wolfman. Not so much the Mummy, but it had its time in the sun. Now, let's go down memory lane with the plot. Let's go.
Here's host, the Slayer of Evil, franchise TV.
The year 1887. Location: Transylvania, Romania. Dr. Vanta Frankenstein and his assistant Igor had just completed his greatest creation, bringing life into a dead corpse, the Frankenstein monster. With Victor, he did not see the end of this film, slayed in his prime by the film's main antagonist, Count Dracula. Alright, enough of the weird Romanian accent. Well, he met his end when the scientists refused to go along with the vampire's plans for the monster. The monster, angered, throws a cage at Dracula, knocking Dracula into a fireplace and escapes with the corpse of the good doctor. The healing CGI of Dracula in this film still kind of holds up to this day. A mob forms, chasing the monster into a windmill, burning down the windmill as Dracula and his sexy ass brides watch, fearing the worst might have just happened. The scene also pays homage to the black and white and to the 1931 film Frankenstein, because there was a mob looking for payback as well in that film. A year later, we meet Gabriel Van Helsing. He's introduced to us as a monster hunter who works for the Knights of the Holy Order after a brawl with Mr. Hyde and Dr. Jekyll. Did I say that right? Oh, whatever. You get what I'm trying to say. After a little brawl in Notre Dame, and once former doctor falls from the church and dies. I do say that this version of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and the version that was in the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen pay homage to the Hulk, in which the Hulk was inspired by the original story of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I think most people might know that. Some probably don't, so if you didn't know, that's where the inspiration for the Hulk came from. And I guess you could say Dr. Jekyll's story could have inspired Two-Face with this whole split personality and everything. But in this version of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, it was portrayed as a brute-type character devouring people, which is the reason why Van Helsing went after the brute in the first place. But once Dr. Jekyll transforms and dies, a cop discovers the body of the doctor and blames Van Helsing for the death. Now there's a little backstory for our main character. He doesn't remember a damn thing. Before waking up on the church steps close to death, his side quest in this film is for him to begin for the sins he has forgotten and attempts to regain his memory. When he returns to the Order of Headquarters, he is given a mission like he's James Bond. By his cue, his mission: delete Dracula, protect the Valerius children, which are the last of an ancient Romanian family. According to the lore of the film, the children's ancestor vowed that his future relatives would strike down the vampire or spend eternity in purgatory. Well, it's not really going well for the children, as Valken Valerius is bitten by a werewolf who is being controlled by Dracula. Valken is perceived to be deceased, but back to him later on. But it's not lost yet. Help is on the way. Van Helsing and his weapon expert friar monk, Carl, arrive in creepy Monsterland, approached by the locals, including Sexy Anna herself. But their meeting is interrupted by an attack from Dracula's groupie loyal brides, Verona, Mariska, and Alira. I hope I pronounced those names right. In real life, Verona is married to Dracula. Mariska didn't last that long, and I thought at the time, keep in mind, 2004 me thought at the time out of all three brides, Alira? Yeah, I think that was her name. Alira was the hottest one. But Van Helsing destroys Mariska with his crossbow laced with holy water, turned to dust like Thanos. Valken returns back into the fold later that night, but he comes back to warn his sister about Dracula before he changes back into the dreaded werewolf. Van Helsing shoots at him. The Valken escapes, and is not happy that Van Helsing almost terminated her own brother, but they decide to follow him to Castle Frankenstein, where they discover a sinister plan. The two see sacks of the undead, and they discover the undead, unborn, need life, and they belong to Dracula, of course. And the only way to get that life, they need electricity to be awakened. Okay, and Dracula's plan is to use Valken and his werewolf form to do it. Okay. Silly plan for a silly film. But bad guy and good guy finally meet for the first time. Or did they meet for the first time? Van Helsing is very cautious about his opponent as Dracula rambles on about their past beef together. Van Helsing not knowing what the hell this damn vampire is talking about. But Dracula's undead, unborn children are alive thanks to Valken's life force when he's not a vampire, a werewolf. Vampire, werewolf, single thing. Whatever he said in the beginning of the film. I don't know how these children were made. I don't really know how these children were made. Because they have no resemblance to Dracula or his brides. They look like goblins with wings. Well, anyways, these children of the vampire wreak havoc around town, but it doesn't last long as they die. But Carl finally breaks his virginity and he's awarded after saving a woman from these creatures. And if you don't get what I just did, you just don't get what I just did. As for Van Helsing and Anna, they escape Castle Frankenstein and fall into the ruins of a windmill. The same windmill from earlier. They run into the Frankenstein monster, who informs the two, in order for those winged dingbats to live, that himself is the key to Dracula's blood's life. Did Dracula really think this monster was down for the count after that windmill went down? Did they really I never understood that. Did he ever go into the ruins of that? Maybe not. Maybe he thought the body was so burnt up. Maybe that was it. Maybe keeping the doctor alive may have been a better move, because, you know, just in case something wrong, the doctor might have the blueprint. I don't know. Well, there's another bad idea coming your way. The monster's rambling, Frankenstein of course, spills the beans as the Wolfman listens in on the conversation, running back to its master. Dope! Bad idea. Now Van Helsing has to hide the monster from Dracula because they know where they're at. Before we go on with the show, how about you guys like, share, subscribe to Franchise History TV, even comment down in the comments down below. I'm also on Instagram at franchise_TV and on Twitter at TV_franchise. I also have two other channels if you guys are interested: Lone Wolf Adventure TV and Franchise 2 Sports. So, yeah, subscribe to those three channels. And also like, share, subscribe on all three of them. I say subscribe 3 times. I'm done. Bye. In order to hide Frankenstein, Van Helsing's plan was to move the monster to Rome. But that plan laid in ruins once the brides and the Wolfman ran up. But that was also part of the plan for them to roll up on him. But one of the brides got the slip. And Van Helsing's plan, they used 2 stagecoaches, right? One with the actual Frankenstein monster inside riding along, and the other filled with a holy war bomb. Morona becomes a victim. Boom, another bride gone. Fortunately, Van Helsing is bitten with his tussle with the Wolfman. Bye-bye, Valken. And now Anna's a hostage to Dracula. The remaining bride, Elira, tells Van Helsing and Carl and the monster once they reach back town to meet Dracula at a vault in exchange for the monster. Van Helsing, of course, refuses, knocks the monster out with a blowtorch, blowhorn, whatever that thing is called, poison dart, putting him to sleep, hides him in the graveyard. Bad idea. Like, absolute bad idea. Because now that leaves him open, of course. Van Helsing and Carl attend the ball held by Dracula, an All Hallows Eve ball. Dracula attempts to turn Anna into another bride, but the dynamic duo arrives, putting an end to Dracula's brief plan. The thing about the scene is what you don't see at first. Dracula gives his brief monologue, introduces his guests to Van Helsing, and all these guests are vampires. There are mirrors in this ball to let you know that they're all vampires, because vampires don't have reflections. Not a single reflection in that mirror. Another question though, where in the hell did all these vampires come from? I'm guessing Dracula turned them into vampires. That's my only guess, but where were these vampires earlier in the film? He could have used them to do his bidding instead of trying to use a werewolf. But then again, we'll get to that later. Dracula sixes vampire minions on our heroes. Carl throws a bomb that destroys the vampires as they jump out of the castle into a moat below. And if things didn't get worse for Van Helsing, Dracula was always working with Igor, who finds the monster and captures him, taking him back to Dracula's lair. Carl receives word off screen from the Order that Frankenstein monster must be destroyed, and as for being the messenger, Carl is choked out by Van Helsing, who slowly turned into a werewolf. Damn. Van Helsing pleads with Carl that the monster isn't evil, and on the behalf of the monster, he does read the Bible. In all honesty, he never really appeared to be evil. He just wanted to live. Against the Order's wishes, Van Helsing and Carl and Anna decide to save the monster before Dracula can give life to his children. But first, the trio must find a location of this evil vampire. So going back to the night Carl lost his V card, he happened to stumble upon the next morning a moving picture depicting a battle between two warriors. Both of the warriors transform into a werewolf and a vampire. And this is when we learn Dracula is scared of werewolves. And thanks to the good Cardinal for giving Van Helsing that little piece of the map, and also this ring from Dracula, they discover a passage to Dracula's lair that leads them from the Valerius residence. Welcome to Castle Dracula. And from the looks of it, Castle Dracula is in the Carpathian Mountains. The trio arrives via a portal and the Valerius library. I don't know if this is a portal or ice portal, whatever it is, but we also discover some special details and backstory about our villain in our story. For starters, Dracula is the son of Valerius the Elder, who was killed by the left hand of God. In biblical terms, that's the angel Gabriel, or Archangel Gabriel. In the case of this film, it's Van Helsing. He's the incarnation of Gabriel. When I was younger, I was so confused. But Valerius the Elder is also ancestor to Anna, so it's all in the same family. But before he could die, Dracula made a pact with the devil and became what we see in this film. Valerius the Elder's mission was to kill his own son, but couldn't bring himself to do it and locked his son in the icy fortress. Wink wink, Castle Dracula. So now that our heroes have finally entered Castle Dracula, once inside, they found the cure for Van Helsing's current condition, the cure to werewolfism. Now I do remember, Dracula is scared of beasts because they can wipe him out. So he keeps the cure very close to him, which is a brilliant idea up until now, because he knew nobody could find his freaking fortress, so it made sense. But I also don't think he counted anybody finding that icy lair, like I said before. And this icy lair for Dracula could be a reference to the Divine Comedy in the ninth layer of hell, which is an icy prison to people who committed the sin of treachery, betrayal, and where Satan resides, which actually fits Dracula well. Just saying, could possibly be a reference to that. But anyways, Carl and Anna retrieve the cure after a minor battle with Igor, who falls to his demise permanently. The duo frees Frankenstein's monster, but he is struck by lightning, resulting in the birth of Dracula's hideous offspring. Carl and Anna tussle with the last bride of Dracula, with Anna stabbing Alira in the heart, and probably one of the worst, I mean the worst CGI moments I've ever seen. Yeah, I did give praise to Dracula's healing factor or regenerative powers close up, but that's it. Some of the CGI was not on point, especially the deaths of Alira and Mariska, and other scenes as well. But it's the early 2000s. Remember The Rock in The Mummy Returns? Yeah.
Oh man! Oh God! Oh man!
But like I said, they always did the healing process, the regenerative powers of Emotep and Dracula, always on point. Even when you go to watch the X-Men with Wolverine, the CGI with the healing is on point. It's so seamless in these films. But I guess, I don't know. But back to Dracula's castle. Who cares? But going back to the death of Alira, the whole battle scene was just goofy. So Anna gets knocked out midair while swinging rope to rope to rope, tumbling them on boulders like a ping pong without any injury. Reminds me of Black Widow falling from a couple stories in her own film, but that's okay. The reason why I have a problem with Anna surviving that tumble will be coming up soon. Now we finally have the showdown between hero and villain in Dracula's lab. Little does he know, and a little bit too late, that Dracula is about to find out Van Helsing can change into what he fears the most, a werewolf bent on killing him. Now, as a kid, I was just a little disappointed with this battle. Like, they had Dracula have this whole hideous side resembling a demonic vampire with wings. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little frightened of it at first sight when this film was first released, but he was beat. He was on the defense the whole time. He didn't really. Anyways, whatever. I was just hoping when I first saw this movie that the demonic version of Dracula was gonna do a little bit more than run around because he was scared of a werewolf. But at the same time, werewolf Van Helsing was scary as hell. Oh yeah, Dracula's little demonic whatever they are minions were nasty too, but Wolverine just threw them around like teddy bears. And one of his transformations back to his human self, Dracula explains to the human Van Helsing that Van Helsing was the one who killed him and offers to give full memory. Van Helsing decides he doesn't want to remember anything. And once those clouds pass the moon, Van Helsing goes Wolverine berserk mode, because it shows him back to his werewolf self, on Dracula, biting the neck of the villain, killing him in another terrible CGI moment. And also Dracula's children perish as well. Terrible CGI moments, man. There's lots of them in this film. Anna cures Van Helsing, but she is flattened by werewolf Van Helsing, so she can get hit midair by a vampire, right? Get hit full power midair by a vampire. Become a human ping pong. Hit boulders on both sides of her on that wall and survives without problem, but gets tackled by Van Helsing and dies. The movie rules, man. The movie rules ain't adding up. But I guess the movie calls for Anna's death because no one lives happily ever after. Carl attempts to kill Van Helsing, but Van Helsing stops him. The cure has worked. Van Helsing transforms back to normal and mourns Anna's death. In the last scene of this film, or one of the last scenes in this film, Van Helsing and Carl cremate Anna's body on a cliff overlooking the lake. Van Helsing sees Anna's spirit in the sky, reuniting with her family. The Frankenstein monster leaves via boat, but I'm thinking it has to be a sea. The closest sea near Transylvania is the Black Sea, going east. I wonder where the monster is going east. China? Russia? India? Who knows? But anyways, Van Helsing and Carl ride out to the sunset, probably heading back to Rome for another mission. The end. I guess you could say this film is a typical early 2000s plot. I call it cookie color plot, but it's alright. Now, 14-year-old me waited for a sequel. It is said if this film was to do well at the box office, another film would come into play. Heck, they even kept some of the sets. But the sequel was scrapped down in its prime. They even had plans for a TV show spinoff called Transylvania, but that was cut down in its prime too. But there was an animated spin-off called Van Helsing: The London Assignment, which took place before the events of this film. Van Helsing's job was to hunt down Dr. Jekyll in London. Typical Universal. But 10 years later, we saw this film called Dracula Untold, and then 3 years later, The Mummy with Tom Cruise. I still don't know what that movie's about, even though it's been 7 years now. They tried for that dark universe, and it failed. But since then, Universal has released Dracula Untold, Renfield, and The Last Voyage of the Demeter in the last 10 years. But, Renfield and The Last Voyage of the Demeter, I don't think it's on par with Van Helsing, I'm sorry. Renfield, both of these films actually had their moments. But in terms of being a Dracula film, Van Helsing was it. And both of those films do not have no replay value in my humble opinion. But like I said before, Van Helsing was not liked by the critics, but watching some of the clips on this film and looking into the comment section of those videos, I can tell this film is still liked by the fans. People still get joy watching this film. And it's been almost 20 years later, and I probably watch this film every October, at least. So yes, it does have big time replay value. You know why? Because it's a damn fun film. You have Hugh Jackman, aka Wolverine, at the time. Still is Wolverine, technically. I don't know. That's a video for a different day. But you got Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. You got some men's fantasy wife in Kate Beckinsale. And you got the overall creepiness, darkness, campiness to this film. More good-looking women to grace your eyes with the Brides of Dracula. An evil villain in Dracula whose motivation is only to see his children live. There's no evidence of world domination. At least yet. Similar to Imhotep, how he wanted to take over the world. Characters had clear motivations. Van Helsing was to destroy the villainous Dracula while trying to remember his past and felt the deaths of the creatures he slayed. And about his past, and the backstory lore of this Van Helsing, this version of Van Helsing, he was once the archangel Gabriel, a messenger of God who delivers messages to God's chosen, and even spoke about the birth of Jesus. Eventually, Gabriel took on a human form, fighting for the Knights of the Holy Order, when he met a young Vlad. The two became friends until Vlad made a mistake of breaking his celibacy. The woman Vlad had relations with was killed, and Vlad sought to bring her back to life via black magic, breaking the code among the order. It will force Gabriel to destroy Vlad, thus Gabriel feeling guilty and asking God to erase his memories. Gabriel was forced to live 400 years without a memory until he arrived at the steps of the Vatican, broken, hurt, and brought in by the Vatican, becoming the monster hunter Gabriel Van Helsing. Now, the story of Vlad sounds very similar to an old buddy of ours, Imhotep, who also got busted for trying to resurrect a dead girlfriend and cursed to be some monstrous creature walking the earth in human form. So that explains the two characters Van Helsing and Dracula's past with each other. Anna had to destroy Dracula in order for her family to see the gates of heaven. Dracula wanted to see his children live, despite losing his brides in the process, and using something that can kill him like a werewolf to do his bidding. Yeah, Dracula was a slimeball. He showed very little compassion at times for his brides. With his mentality, I can always find another one, which he tries with Anna, even though early in the film he tried to wipe her out. But then again, I wouldn't wipe Anna out either. Why? Why not make a beautiful woman your bride, your vampire bride? But Dracula in this film is very cunning, seductive villain. According to him, an undead man with no feeling, no love, no emotion. Nothing but desires to see his ugly ass children live. I'm actually kind of glad that they was able to make Dracula somewhat human, appear human, and then make him into the monstrous demonic version of him, which I was very, very disappointed with, because you didn't get to see him that much. And when you did get to see him, he ran away from the werewolf Van Helsing. Sad. But I wonder if those children will mature to become humans. But anyways, I don't know. We'll never get to see. And lastly, the Frankenstein's monster only wanted to live as a human being and not be seen as a monster. But I guess he never really looked in the mirror lately. But regardless of being made for evil, he had a good heart. The brides just carried out anything Dracula wanted to do in exchange for the love of Dracula, which he barely showed. And from the background lore, each of the brides had a previous life before they became part of Dracula's brothel. Each of them around 300 years old and up. I think one of them was like a dancer or something like that. Igor was just there to serve his masters. And the Wolfman, aka Werewolf, Wolfman, whatever you want to call him, were in Wolfman mode, Vulcan I should say. He was loyal to serve as Dracula, his minion, Muscle, despite Vulcan trying to break the curse. Carl was loyal to the order despite him wanting to know what cheeks felt like, but he had a mission: assist Van Helsing to destroy the monster. And Dracula, of course, and even pleading against Van Helsing to kill that monster. And the fact that Stephen Sommers found a way to incorporate the story of Count Dracula, the Wolfman, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and Frankenstein's monster and Igor in one film is somewhat remarkable. He really had to study films such as Frankenstein's meets The Wolfman, House of Frankenstein, and House of Dracula, all crossovers, to pull this off. Something that Universal cannot do these days. Don't know why. Maybe they got these hack writers out here. They tried to do that in The Mummy by having Dr. Jekyll in that film, but it didn't work. I think writers now try to go for the kitchen sink, the home run, without really fleshing out entire stories and motivations. And that when they just try to go for the home run, they create all these plot holes.
You blew it!
Don't get me wrong. It's done somewhat perfectly with the MCU. But I can't say the same for others. Can't say the same for the Dark Universe. Should have slowed their roll for the Dark Universe. Still try to add nonsense that didn't make sense. But if you want a light-hearted film, but an action-adventure horror film, I guess Mr. Summers is the one to call. See his work with the Mummy series, or at least the first two films speak for themselves. But the legacy of this film, Van Helsing, will live on as one of those movies that are made for fun and entertainment, similar to the first two Mummy films that Summers has created. And none of them are masterpieces, but that's all fine and dandy. We didn't want them to be masterpieces. If you can enjoy the movie and watch it over and over again, then the director, writers, actors did their job. They did their job. But I would like to review a TV show that tried this concept in Pretty Dreadful. Just maybe I will.